Good morning, everybody. Good morning. My name is Cesar Hernandez. I'm one of the founders and interim executive director of the Tampa Bay Mobility Alliance. And before I begin, just some quick housekeeping. So we have restrooms over to our left. Also, for parking, everybody received this key fob. Once you leave, you can go through the special events parking lane, and you would be able to park for free for the day for being in the event. With that being said, I also want to give a tremendous shout out and thank you to our hosts. So to the Tampa International Airport, Janet and your team, round of applause to them. Thank you so much for providing such an awesome venue. And we also have complimentary breakfast. And CEO of the airport, Johan, not here today, but he does send a video, a nice little welcome video for everybody to attend the session.
Hi, welcome to Tampa International Airport. Sorry I can't be with you today for this important conversation. Tampa Bay's transportation network is a high priority for the airport. We serve more than 22 million passengers each year, and more than 10,000 people work on the airport campus. That means an average of 70,000 people a day travel to and from Europe. They're tourists coming from cities with advanced transportation systems, business travelers contributing to Tampa Bay's economy, air service transportation, travel to and from Palestine, Pasco County, all four corners of Hillsborough County, and other corners. And they need better access and more choices to keep our region competitive and productive. This is an exciting time in the world of transportation, with innovation for both high-speed, long-distance travel and first-mile, last-mile solutions. I'm hopeful about the transportation future of Tampa Bay. Thank you for the work you all are doing on this front. Have a great meeting. Hi, welcome to Tampa Bay. Sorry I can't be with you today for this important conversation.
Well, thank you, Joe, for those remarks. Another round of applause for your Tampa. So, with that being said, just a brief introduction to the Tampa Bay Mobility Alliance, and just wanted to say thank you to everybody for taking the time out today to be here today. Also, I would like to say thank you to State Representative Jennifer Webb for being in attendance today. So, thank you. Thank you to County Commissioner Kimberly Oberman for being here today. And I also see Mr. Craig Jusak from the County Commission's office as well. So Craig, thank you for being here this morning. Now, the Tampa Bay Mobility Alliance, we are a 501c3 nonprofit, nonpartisan, tri-county organization that's really built to advocate on behalf of transportation, mobility, and technology solutions across Tampa Bay. And the reason why this is an important time for such an alliance is because as we're competing against the global landscape, I found this awesome statistic, and that is that Tampa Bay, Orlando, and Miami, if looked at as a mega region, we compete amongst the top 10 mega regions in the world. Yet we do so without any sophisticated or robust connectivity or transportation modes. And I honestly think that that is really an attribute to the awesome transit leaders that we have that are doing what they can with the resources that's given to them. And so today, we ignite this conversation, not just for the guy in a tie, but for the people that are using our transportation modes to connect to centers of employment, to connect to their families, and to connect to resources. So those individuals that can't be here today, to be able to provide a voice for the voiceless. So today, TBMO has over 100 members in the organization. We have 3 chairs from the 3 counties and 5 very active committees. And this movement could not have been done without specific individuals that were able to be there for us and back us. So to Joey Bretner, who saw these ideas on a slide deck and decided to back us, I really want to say a big thank you to Joey Bretner and welcome him up to the stage. So Joey.
Caesar. First of all, thank you to everyone for coming. I'm going to be brief. My primary motivation, and if any of you don't know me, I'm probably best known for starting a brewery called Cigar City Brewing. And in doing that, I was very fortunate to be able to travel around the country and around the world. Growing up in Tampa, I'm a fifth generation Floridian, both sides of the family. Growing up in Tampa, you don't know what you don't have until you see it elsewhere. Going to cities like Denver, San Francisco, Copenhagen, you see modes of transportation that at first you don't even realize that you're seeing something vastly different than what you're used to. And then, as you build a business and you start thinking about how all these things are interlinked, when I'm sitting in the tasting room and there's someone carrying luggage that just got in from Wisconsin, these things start to coalesce and you start to understand just sort of how people move around the world. I'm also a very passionate walker. I try to walk if I can instead of take a car. So you start to learn these things, and then you start to see the issues and the challenges. And I was fortunate enough to kind of be a little bit more than passively interested in these things. And initially, when Mark Sharp approached me, I was kind of already had the fire in my belly to figure out how could we improve some of the processes. And I do feel like a private organization working with public entities is the way to go, because it allows you to really not have to draw any lines in the sand, either politically or being invested in specific technology. So I'm very pleased to be able to be involved with TBMO, primarily because I think going outside of just it being a government entity or just being a private entity, you're able to marry those two things together and get things done that would not be able to be done in other situations. So I'm very pleased to be involved, and I'm so happy that you guys can all come. And without further ado, I'm going to get off the stage, and I'm going to introduce Mayor Rick Kreisman, who's done probably the most of any Florida mayor to try to make cities walkable and get that last mile of transportation to benefit everyone in a safe and convenient way. So thank you very much, Rick Kreisman.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you to the Tampa Bay Mobility Alliance, or TBMO, as I guess it's being called, for inviting me here today. Now, I have to say, it has never been easier to get from my house to Tampa. So I walk out my front door of my house on the west side of St. Petersburg. I step over my hoverboard, and I walk down to the nearest bike share station. I grab a Coast Bike, I head to St. Pete's Bus Rapid Transit Facility, and I ride the BRT in comfort to the e-scooter corral at the St. Pete Pier, where I catch the high-speed ferry to the new Tampa International Airport dock. I disembark, step over a bunch of scooters that people have left on the ground here in Tampa, and I am here, just like that. Now, the good news is some of what I mentioned is already happening, and some could happen. I believe some will happen, and that's why we're here to talk about these things. But before I do so, I want to start by welcoming the partners who are here with us and a part of the next panel. PASCO Commissioner Mike Moore, HART CEO Benjamin Limmer, PSDA CEO Brad Miller, TBARTA Executive Director David Green, and Paul Flores, the TBMO Research and Development Chair. Give a round of applause. I also want to thank Caitlin Johnston from the Tampa Bay Times, who has done a great job of covering a big, complicated issue, and for moderating this panel. Thank you, Caitlin. And I also see Cheryl Stacks from my transportation department here, who does an amazing job for us in St. Petersburg. So thank you. So during my time as mayor, I have given several State of the City addresses. I've also given remarks at my swearing in 2014 and again in 2018. And when presidents or governors or mayors give those type of speeches, they typically will say things like, the state of whatever it is strong. It has never been stronger. It has never been better, et cetera, et cetera. Well, folks, this is not one of those addresses. But I do think it's appropriate to make a declaration. And there is no one word that appropriately describes the state of transportation in Tampa Bay. It is at times both maddening and encouraging. And we have a lot to be frustrated about. We've had governors set us back. We've had voters in Pinellas County set us back. And as local governments, we've probably not done enough ourselves. But we also have many organizations and leaders to thank and voters who get it. And as such, we're moving the ball in a way that perhaps hasn't been moved before. I'm thankful for the Tampa Bay Mobility Alliance and so many others who are advocating for progressive transportation. But we are so far behind other great regions throughout the nation and other nations throughout the world. I've mentioned governors, but I really should have been more specific and just said Rick Scott. It is still surreal to me that a politician would turn down funding for a project that would have fundamentally advanced the economy of Florida and forever altered the way we get around. And for some reason, instead of banishing Mr. Scott to a lifetime of being stuck in traffic on I-4, we reelected him. But I digress. I don't want to diverge too far down the rabbit hole of the Florida economy or the global economy. However, if you'll indulge me, the World Bank and economists at the World Economic Forum now rank China as the world's leading economy, and it's only growing. The next decade and even the next century will be dominated by Asia and particularly China. Now, it's also worth noting that Condé Nast Traveler has ranked the 10 fastest high-speed trains in the world, and the top 2 are in China, which has the world's longest high-speed rail network. None of them are in America. Let me repeat that. None of them are in America. The rail line from Hangzhou to Shanghai is about 110 miles. It takes about 45 minutes. Imagine what it could be like for a tourist to visit Disney for a day in Orlando and then have dinner in St. Pete after only a 45-minute train ride. Now, I'm not saying high-speed rail is driving China's rapidly expanding economy, but I do think America is behind, and it has held our economy back, and it shows. Before skeptics say that the fastest train in China, the Shanghai Maglev, must only be for the wealthy elite, that it could never work for average middle-class tourists visiting Florida, the fare per person per ride is $8. Of course, we're not here to talk about Shanghai unless Mr. Lupano is announcing a nonstop flight from Tampa to Shanghai. It's a chance. Which is completely possible, though, given Joe's track record. But we are here to talk about Tampa Bay. And for as behind as our state and national leaders have allowed us to fall, for all the political setbacks we've experienced, we have made important strides as a region. It is encouraging. I'm very proud of the Cross Bay Ferry, and I look forward to when it is a permanent fixture in the Tampa Bay region. I am convinced it will become a way of life for us, but I acknowledge that the ferry is not a singular fix for our transportation challenges, but it is something, and it's a start, and people love it. It's a fantastic ride, and if you haven't ridden it yet, I encourage you to take the ride again soon, starting in November. I'm also proud of the work that we have done in St. Petersburg around bus rapid transit. Now, my friends in St. Pete Beach and I have gone back and forth on this just a little bit, but I'm not going to back down because it's too important. And after the Central Avenue BRT project, we need to get the regional BRT project up and running. We need to continue finding new ways to connect our cities together that don't involve driving a car. And I feel confident that the future of transportation in the Tampa Bay region is bright because so many are now thinking about it creatively. Will we see elevated transit soon? Well, David Green and T. Barter were talking about this exciting idea just last month. Thank you. And I'm intrigued and think it could be a part of our future. And yes, we are bringing scooters to St. Petersburg soon. Now, I usually like to trailblaze and be on the cutting edge, but my team and I hung back just a little bit on this one to learn how others were doing it and what mistakes were being made, and to ensure that our scooter program is as sound as possible. And contrary to what I thought about the prior governor's transportation decision about high-speed rail, I do want to thank the legislature and this governor for changing state laws related to scooters so that they don't have to be ridden on sidewalks and instead can now be ridden in the street, including in bicycle lanes. The sharing economy and shared transportation is upon us, and it is only growing. And regardless of that, and regardless of alternative forms of transit, the work our FDOT is doing in the next 5 to 7 years to modernize our interstate system is much needed. And I want to thank our great District 7 Secretary, David Quinn, for his willingness to be innovative and creative in trying to advance transit options, while he's also focusing on the important little things. You see, we can dream big, but we also must maintain the fundamentals. Streets are important. Complete streets are even more important. And I led my city through a complete streets battle, and I am here as a survivor to tell all my fellow mayors, do not back down. Public safety is our first priority, and lives are literally at stake. And I am proud that in 2017, St. Petersburg was named a silver-level bicycle-friendly community. A ranking that no other large-sized city in Florida had attained at that point. We are dedicated to continuing to improve conditions for bicycling and walking all across St. Petersburg. And I am as dedicated to complete streets today as I have ever been. It is no secret that urban mobility is highly desirable to the creative class companies that we'd like to bring and retain in St. Petersburg and in the Tampa Bay region. So the bonus is, it's not just a public safety issue, but it's also an economic issue. So again, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you. Thank you for helping us move Tampa Bay forward, and it has been my pleasure to join you and to work alongside you in this very, very important endeavor. Thank you all so much.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'd like to thank Mayor Kreisman, Amy Betchcom. Thank you, Mayor Kreisman. You are truly a mobility warrior, as we are. Hashtag mobility warrior today. Whether it's walkways or waterways and everything in between, Mayor Kreisman and his amazing team are setting precedent, and we are very grateful for you doing that. At this time, I'd like to invite the panelists to please come up and get settled in your spots. Just to give you a little high-level view of how it's going to go, I'm going to introduce our moderator, and she will introduce the panelists. The panelists have a set of questions that have been developed by the Tampa Bay Mobility Alliance, and we have shared those questions with them. But we are hoping to achieve a very conversational type of dialogue, and we hope that you enjoy the dialogue. Our panelists are settled. I have the pleasure and honor of introducing Amy. Although she needs no introduction because we all know her and are very grateful for the work that she does in our community. Caitlin Johnston writes for the Tampa Bay Times. She spends untold hours crisscrossing our region, so she knows our pain firsthand, to tell the tale of transportation. She dissects complex projects and policies and budgets, and then she conveys those to readers in a way that enables them to understand what these things mean to them personally, to their families, to their loved ones, to their commutes, to their neighborhoods, to their quality of life. If you don't believe me with how devoted she is, just follow her on Twitter. She can be found at 9-hour meetings at one stretch, sharing information with us. Caitlin, we thank you for being our moderator, and I will hand over the dialogue.
Good morning, everybody. I've had the pleasure of interviewing most people up here, but usually it's on one-on-one settings, so it's a little different setup for us this morning. But hopefully we all can benefit from the information shared up here today. Our panelists have already been introduced, but one more time, just to be thorough. We have Mike Moore with the Pasco County Commission. We have Paula Flores, who is the Research and Development Chair for the Tampa Bay Mobility Alliance. Brad Miller, the CEO of PSTA. David Green, the Executive Director of TBMO. And Benjamin Limmer, the CEO of HEART. So I'm actually going to start this off by giving Paula the first question. The Mobility Alliance, I know a lot of us are probably still learning about, but they've been working really hard to establish this conversation and dialogue around mobility options here. And they created a human-centered mobility bill of rights, which might sound like a big term. But why don't you tell us more about it and how it's going to be used?
Wonderful. Thank you, Caitlin, and welcome, everybody. Good morning. So, as the chair of the TBMO Research and Development Committee, the first task that they just threw at me was to develop a scorecard to determine how the Tri-County region is doing in providing transportation facilities and services to the greater community. I'm like, wow, that's no easy task, and certainly, pretty daunting at first. So we had a lot of conversations about what are we measuring. We have all these wonderful agencies from state to county to city to NPOs to transit organizations. They all have their individual plans. I think we had a total of 39 posted on the TBMO website, and we started digging through them. There was a lot of commonalities, a lot of wonderful things in there. How they go about, resolving or addressing them, very different and unique. But we wanted to say, what is it that we're doing? Are we measuring everybody individually, or are we going to determine and identify maybe a shared vision of goals that we can all aim for? So we decided to go with that latter one. What is it? Define what those goals should be so we can all work collectively towards them. So that was a starting point for, the creation of the Tampa Bay Human-Centered Mobility. So in most studies, or most, planning efforts and all of these plans, there was always talk about safety and health, connectivity, resiliency, accessibility, reliability of the systems that we plan and design and own and operate and so forth. But we decided to take a different path, right? We've seen those plans, and they always come from the agencies and their voice. But we wanted to make sure that this mobility bill of rights, it's about people. It's about creating a system that is safe and reliable and healthy for all of our residents and visitors who come to our region. So the difference in the human-centered mobility bill of rights is, first off, we hold people as our first and highest priority on how we look and address transportation. So when I looked at all of those national planning, FHWA has a lot of insight as to all of these principles about planning for transportation on a regional basis. I decided to take these words and put it into first person. It's about people that we're aiming for. So the Bill of Rights, and I hope all of you grabbed one as you walked in, talks about, it is the right to be safe and healthy. Think about it for a second. I can enjoy my trip free from harassment and harm using a safe and comfortable and intuitive system. The next one is talk about the right to be informed and heard, the ability for I and people of different ages and abilities, can rely on governing agencies to respect and empower communities. And transparent decision making. The next one, right to move around. We all should have the flexibility or to practice multimodal systems. The second to last, the right to connect and prosper. I am connected to my community. I can access people and places I need and can engage in my community and regional happenings. And the last one, of course, right to quality options. And this talks about I have access to choose from a variety of multimodal options. So the Mobility Bill of Rights, from a human-centered perspective, it's been written. The TBMO board has already approved the principles as written. On the second page, on the back side, we started to come up with a framework on the objectives. How do we achieve some of these rights? How do we tackle it? What are things we need to focus on? What are things we may need to do a better job on? Or things that we're already doing really well from location to location? So the intent of these, TBMO, we're hoping now that we have these mobility bill of rights and providing us a focus for how to look at transportation and our needs for the future, especially knowing, Florida is very lucky to have this explosive growth in population, in visitors, in the economy, in jobs, but we have to focus on how to provide safe, reliable transportation systems that are comprehensive and multimodal. So we're hoping to take these principles now and develop education, awareness, do social media posts, to make publications on some of these hot topics, and post all this information on the website. We're also looking at we can already support local programs like TBMO just recently took an action to support the Hillsborough MPO Vision Zero Coalition and the action plan, and we hope to do the same for Pinellas County when Port Pinellas comes up with their action plan. We can start supporting the good things that are already happening in this community. And, as I mentioned first, this will be the basis for our scorecard. So we're going to start developing it over the next few months and stay posted on that. And we hope that from year to year, we're going to start to see progress on trying to achieve these human-centered mobility bill of rights.
Thank you. Now, obviously, benchmarks, safety, governance, connectivity, these are words that we hear every day in Tampa Bay when trying to evaluate the transportation system here. And I'm going to pose this question to all of our panelists, so start thinking. Tampa Bay has spent decades trying to address transportation. We have all heard about countless studies and all the initiatives over the past literal decades. But while other cities have moved forward, Tampa Bay has stalled. What is one factor that you think has contributed to Tampa Bay's inaction? And there'll be a more positive question after that.
Well, I'll go ahead and start.
Thank you.
Maybe the one who's lived through a little bit of that, or one of those efforts that didn't fail to launch. Obviously, I think it's a complicated question. The Tampa Bay region there's lots of people in this room that have worked very, very hard for many, many years, as we all know. And I think one of the consultants came up with the statistic that there's been 55 attempts at some kind of rapid transit system for the Tampa Bay region over the last 30 years, most of which just became studies that ended up on the shelf and didn't go anywhere. Maybe one of the reasons that Tampa Bay has fallen so behind, and I do agree, we are very, very far behind now of lots of pretty much every other major metropolitan area in the United States. Maybe it's because we didn't ever pull the trigger some years ago, and it had become much, much harder, just with the political climate that we're in and lots of different factors. It's become harder and harder to get something going now than, say, it was back in the 70s and 80s. Heck, PSK was created in 1982 by the state legislature and a governor who wanted to help senior citizens moving to Pinellas County with a way to get around. And so the governor at the time promoted the property tax that pays for us now and got that thing going. That would never happen, obviously, today. Obviously, I think probably one of the reasons is just our geographic setup in that we are a very diverse region separated by a lot of water, and we don't act as one single central CBD. Like say where I used to work in Charlotte, which passed a sales tax in 1988, or Denver, some of these other cities. It's a larger, more diverse community, and just makes it that much harder. But I think we're going to talk a little bit about it. There's some inspiration now that maybe things will change.
I am not a fifth generation Floridian. I've been here all of about 9 months, and my experience has been very different. In the short time that I've been in Tampa Bay, everything has been very positive. The people that I cross paths with are very supportive of regional transportation and improving mobility, and I'm not sure if there's just that pent-up frustration of years past. But I guess I could say that I'm relieved, that would probably be a good word, that I didn't have to live through all those previous years of failed initiatives. And from my standpoint, it feels like things have kind of shifted and they're starting to move in the right direction.
So I've been here even a shorter time than the friend of mine to my right, since I'm in month number 5. Much like David, I've seen tremendous support since I came to this region in March. But I have had the opportunity to work on transit investment programs in other metropolitan areas, and I've always boiled it down to 2 things. The first of which is funding, obviously, committed long-term local funding in order to truly expand transit systems. You guys know this, and of course Hillsborough County made a very significant down payment on their future with the passage of the sales tax last fall. Looking forward to working with my partners to make it happen elsewhere throughout the region as well. So funding is one, and political will. Having the political will of your leadership to go out on a limb and fight for something that they may or may not even get to go to a ribbon cutting, because it takes so long in order to build like a light rail system like I worked on in Phoenix, or in bus rapid transit like I worked on in Cleveland. So those are kind of the 2 key elements, but very much looking forward to making things happen in Hillsborough County.
And then down at the end, if you guys have brief answers. Yes.
Brief answer.
Yes, please.
The long word over the short one, but I think it comes down to using the word we. That's it. I mean, it's very simple. That's why we're here today, right? We're all in a room together because we want to be on the same page. For too many years, it's been I or me. So we want to talk regional, it's got to be we. So let's start saying the word we. Let's stop thinking about ourselves, thinking about everybody.
I'm also new here. I've been here since 2015, and I can tell you that when I first arrived in Tampa, I thought it was the most car-centric city I've ever been to, and I've been all over the world and European-born. But, things have changed, and you should be proud of the changes that I see every day, similar to my counterparts up here. A lot of positive attitudes, different directions. People are all talking about the same things now. People understand what Vision Zero is. That's amazing. That is wonderful. So we're making progress, and I think it's time, Tampa Bay, that we move together. We will move together forward.
Thank you. So on the flip side, Brad, what is one change you've recently seen in St. Pete that leads you to believe that Tampa Bay is ready to move forward and is ready to really implement some of these major transit projects that it's studied for decades?
Right. Well, I think I better break your rule and say There's more than one reason, but there is a lot of hope. I think there's really three things that give me a lot of hope. First of all, in St. Petersburg specifically, the change over the last, say, even 5 years, even since the referendum in 2014, of just the amount of growth and development and young people and empty nesters moving to that, choosing to move to an urban center, and the number of cranes building the apartments up and down where we're going to have the bus rapid transit line, choosing maybe not to have 3 cars, maybe only have 2 cars or 1 car, and trying all these different new modes, new opportunities to get around rather than driving a car. The ferry, the downtown free looper with electric buses now, the scooters, bike share. Gosh, we're up in Dunedin, we're carrying thousands of Canadians to Toronto Blue Jays games on the trolley, which we never used to be able to do before. Over 150 people a day with disabilities are riding Lyft, which never existed, to get to where they want to go in 5 minutes rather than calling the day ahead. There has been a sea change in the willingness and interest of our residents to try different alternatives than only a single occupant vehicle. Second, I think there has been great, strong leadership by Mayor Kreisman and the Pinellas County Commission and even the Hillsborough County Commission that hasn't been there always in times past. So I think those are two key changes that give me hope. I would say the third, and of course, is what happened in Hillsborough last fall with the citizen group of All for Transportation doing something different than those 55 studies or 55 attempts in the past had ever done, by talking about how transportation affects all of our lives. Not about whether it's a 40-foot bus or a 60-foot bus or if it's a electric or CNG bus, but how traffic is going to create gridlock in our community and really hurt our community, and maybe there's something we can do about it to make it better.
Now, the commissioner referenced the importance of saying we, not I or us, or that combative stance. And I can't tell you guys how many meetings I've sat in where the point of talking with one voice comes up. We hear it a lot, why that's important. But, perhaps David and Mike can speak to this. But what are the challenges of speaking with one voice and getting multiple counties on board to actually act on one vision? And what benefit is there from moving past those challenges if you're able to?
Let's be politically correct. I'm just kidding.
I hope not.
I'm kidding. Let me go back in time a little bit since Mayor Kreisman is here, and he may or may not remember this, but my first meeting on T-BART, I think, was in 2015, and that meeting we met somewhere, I think, off West Shore. And you and I were sitting there, and the former District 7 secretary was presenting, at that time, their BRT. You remember this? Right? And you and I we were sitting next to each other, we kind of looked at each other. Well, what about us? Because if you remember, it didn't get to the areas in your county, in your city, where it needed to go, and it didn't get to Wesley Chapel, right? So, thankfully though, those times are changing, and we're having that regional discussion now. BRT is important to the entire region. It has to be in Pasco County. Pasco County is the fastest growing county in the region. It's one of the fastest growing counties in the state. And I'm very thankful that Pasco County was invited to this table, the seats. Because at one time, that wasn't the case. Let's just be honest. Pasco County was a forgotten county for many, many years. And I think more and more people are realizing, again, the impact we are having on the region. You look at some of the assets we have now, the largest ice skating rink in the southeastern United States. Every weekend, there are people flying into this airport and driving over to that ice rink to compete. We have a 100,000 square foot indoor recreation facility that's going to be focused on amateur travel sports. They're going to be flying into this airport and driving through downtown Tampa. It took me an hour to get here from Western Chapel today. An hour on the button. My daughter turned 16 yesterday, and we bought her a car. I know it's crazy, but we have 3 children, and this is going to help us out the fact. But there's no way in the world I would let her get on 275 and drive to downtown Tampa. Not happening. I'd be scared to death. I'd be in the hospital probably. I don't want to be long-winded on this, but so I think I feel we are getting there. We are getting there, but the challenges to me is that just throughout the years, so many committees, so many agencies going in this direction and that direction and that direction, and again, nobody being on the same page. So somehow, some way, all these agencies need to get together and be on the same page. Because if we're not, how can things move forward? I would assume people, I'm going to ask you this question. How many people are in favor of regional BRT? How many people are not in favor of regional BRT? So, okay, so overwhelming majority is in favor, which is good. Maybe we can get you there, right? But the benefits it'll have, obviously, will be dramatic in terms of this entire region. But again, we just all got to get together. It's getting there. I feel better about it every day. But there's just too many agencies, there's too many groups, there's too many committees that are all in this direction.
So on that sense, David, he's talking about how there's just been so much going on. There's so many groups in the mix. TBARTA is really supposed to be now this regional transit agency. So how do you work to pull everyone together and cut through that noise?
Well, one of the positive things about TBARTA and everyone who's involved with us, across our board is, the big picture thinkers that we have involved with us. People who realize, that the collective region is as a whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That a healthy, vibrant Tampa or St. Pete or Clearwater makes for a healthy, vibrant Manatee or Hernando. TBARTA covers a wide area, 5 counties, and each area is very diverse. Look at Hillsborough as an example itself. You've got the inner urban core of Tampa, you've got rural areas in eastern and southern Hillsborough, and then you've got suburban areas all in between. But TBARTA's board members realize that we really need to think bigger. We need to realize that we're not competing amongst ourselves. We're really, when it comes to funding and attracting businesses and relocations, we're competing with other regions across the United States. Look at Amazon HQ2, for example. It was just a couple short years ago that people coming all over proposals in to try to get Amazon to put a set headquarters in their region. But a lot of people don't consider, because one of the evaluation criteria was a good, solid, robust regional transportation. Sure, any of them was just run off the table immediately. I feel very high, and people are ready to start thinking.
So Ben, Hillsborough County Commission voted earlier this month that it was going to transfer the development of the McDillary cross area multiple or carrier system to Park. What steps is the agency taking to evaluate what that would look like, and is this something that you guys are able to take?
Look at this time. Absolutely. Look, we have tremendous transportation challenges in Hillsborough County, and it's going to take a lot of tools to help solve those challenges. Any and everything needs to be on the table. Mayor Kreisman's pretty well versed in many of these options, as he mentioned during his opening comments. But, the future of high-capacity transit within Hillsborough County is bright. All the options need to be on the table. And, Hart welcomes the vote of confidence from the Hillsborough County Commission to take a look at ferry as a high-capacity transit option within Hillsborough County and then beyond throughout the region. And I'll certainly be working with TBARTA as well as PSDA on that. So very welcome it. We're going to evaluate what's been done and really identify a path forward working with my board.
And David, TBARTA has been reorganized as this group that is supposed to take on regional transit projects. Is there something on your radar for something that maybe TBARTA hasn't planned?
Ben said something about the time. I'm a huge fan of ferry service. TBARTA's mission revolves around improving regional mobility, reducing traffic congestion, improving air quality. I know the Cross-Bay ferry service has been a tremendous success. It's hugely popular. Mayor Crosby and his team in St. Pete and other project partners have done a fantastic job of making sure that service has been successful, and I look forward to it continuing in the future. I think it comes back to the project partners, and if at some point in the future they feel that TBARTA could bring value to that project, that I would certainly love those conversations.
Now, one of the things with transportation, especially if we're talking regionally, is that you have a lot of people to be accountable to. So for St. Pete, and Brad, you've been dealing with this. The Central Avenue BRT has gotten a lot of praise regionally. You've got the TMA who's signed up on board for it, very supportive. You've had letters of support from over at Hillsborough or Tampa, but you are facing challenges from local residents and communities there in Pinellas. How do you negotiate that? How do you balance needs of varying groups and decide what's most important when working through a project that is both local but regionally significant?
Very carefully. Come over here to Tampa International Airport with my friend Mayor Kreisman and avoid going down to the beach maybe. No, I think that's exactly right. It has gotten tremendous support and is viewed, the project, since it is the furthest along that any rapid transit project in Tampa region has ever gotten, is viewed very positively from the region as a catalyst for the broader network that TBARTA is working on, or even some of the projects that we're doing over here in Hillsborough County. But then when you get down to the specifics and you talk about the length of the buses with the residents of, say, St. Pete Beach, who are sort of questioning whether or not development is right for their community, if they live in a lovely little bungalow, and do they really want the hotels and businesses to grow, which is sort of acknowledging the value of mass transportation as providing an economic benefit, a way for more people to get to the beach. They suddenly get more vested in, say, the details of how this might affect them. And so it's really my job to try to navigate both those groups, that try to explain in a more detailed way that this service how it can benefit them, how it can benefit the community of St. Pete Beach, how the businesses and the hotels, which are very supportive of the project, because they know their workers and their guests, and it'll help them grow, how that benefits the residents. I think we're making some progress with that. We've gone out to those communities more recently and talked about the changes that we've made to the project in the design process that we think make the project overall better, and were ideas that were suggested by their citizens. And I don't think we've completely converted them to supporters, but I think they acknowledge that we are listening to their ideas and trying to make the best service possible for their community, while still highlighting that this is such a good start for the whole region. So I think we're doing okay at community both those messages.
And so there's never a silver bullet, one size fits all transportation solution. We've heard a lot about what Mellis is working on, but for Pasco and Hillsborough, what do you think your communities or your county's specific needs are? What top priority would you say your county needs to address in the transportation network?
Great, that's a great question too. Even though we're bringing jobs to Pasco County on a daily basis, we still have quite a few people that are leaving Pasco County, come to Hillsborough, and Ellis County to work. So again, it comes down to the quality of life issues with people. I talked about how it took me an hour to get here today. That's the Wesley challenge. But if I was coming from Hudson or Separate Hills or Dade City, that hour would take an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, maybe 2 hours. Many years ago when I lived in Hillsborough County, I had an office close to Palms of Pasadena Hospital. How long do you think that took me to get home? That's a long time, right? So again, it comes down to quality of life. So how can we make it better for all the citizens that are traversing? And again, as we grow and as we bring more industry to the area, i.e. recently we made an announcement that it's going for Class A office spaces going vertical in Pasco County. That means people are going to be coming from Hillsborough or Pinellas to come to work in Pasco County. Or Raymond James is finished building. Another example, people will be coming from those other areas, so we want to make it comfortable for them too. Even though they don't live in our county, we want them to have a high quality of life. So going back to the BRT, man, I think it's very important for our region. Thankfully, we have an amazing District 7 Secretary now in David Gwynn. He is just, he's top notch, I'll tell you. And we are so thankful of some of the things we have now that are coming. And FDOT made a statement at the last MPO meeting that Pasco County is getting ahead of the growth and development. It's hard to do, right? It's very hard to do because usually growth and development then comes obviously transportation infrastructure. But we're trying to get ahead of it. So we are in the process of building, this is beneficial for all the region, a new interchange in 75. So an additional interchange that Pasco County is paying for, and we've contracted with FDOT to run the design and build. That's a new interchange, so that helps 75, even leading up to 275, right? So that's something we're doing. I think that benefits the entire. I don't think it does benefit the entire region. The Virgin Diamond. Anybody familiar with the Virgin Diamond? Yeah. So they're in the process of building one of those right now in 56. So there's an example where local politicians actually came into play. When I came into office in 2014, that was scheduled probably to begin in 2024. We have issues now. So working with fellow commissioners, working with our legislators, working with FDOT, that was moved all the way to 2018. So you need, again, being proactive and getting everybody on the same page and understanding that this will be a benefit to the entire community. So those are some examples.
Ben, care to speak to Hillsborough?
Yeah, so today, Hart, of course, serves a very large area. It carries about 35,000 people per day, but with a very low level of local investment in that service. Same goes with PSDA, obviously, but that's all changing. So with the new transportation surtax, assuming it survives the legal battle that it's currently in, top priority for us is to restore bus service to those who need it most, to ensure that that bus service is provided in an equitable fashion to those who need it most, to provide them access to job opportunities as well as other travel options throughout Hillsborough County. On top of that, the citizens, when they voted for it, spoke pretty loudly. They were interested in more than just bus service. There's tremendous opportunity to invest in a high-capacity transit line. It could be bus rapid transit or rail or something else connecting some of our major job centers. I see tremendous, as a person who's relatively new to this region, right off the bat, I see huge opportunity between this building and the central business district within the city of Tampa. That will certainly be on the table as well. And then thirdly, it's really the little things that we have to get right as well. Providing folks a comfortable place to wait for the bus via bus shelters, providing more park and ride opportunities and bus depots, and to really restore and enhance the facilities we have within our system now. Then lastly, I'll close with this, is, my priority is to really provide the citizens of the county what we promised we would, which is more transit, more heart service. But I certainly want to be a strong regional player and supporter as well, because Brad's right, the Central Avenue Bus Rapid Transit, if that is not a tremendous success, it's going to be very difficult to do bus rapid transit throughout the region and throughout Florida. So, I want to do my part to make sure that's successful as well, because that's absolutely critical to the future of Hillsborough County. And bus rapid transit within Hillsborough County is getting the Central Avenue project done in the most successful way possible.
Now I'm going to ask one more question, and then our panelists will have a chance to do a brief closing statement. And then I would like to take a couple questions from the crowd. But transportation is broader than just cars and transit. Mobility and the idea of how we get around and how our lives are made easier is really a complex thing. And it's been shifted in recent years by transportation sharing options. So whether it's Uber or scooters or whatever else may come in the future. Paula, I don't know if you want to address this being here in Tampa and seeing, scooters firsthand, but how does the advent of a new option that makes something easier and more flexible with the sharing option, how do you balance that with also just safety needs and regulation and, really pulling together a new option that people are excited about, but still needs to be evaluated?
It's tricky. I just got back from a conference in Austin, Texas, where the mayor was sitting on a stage like this, and somebody from the crowd threw out a question at him to say, how can you say our scooter program has been successful when we've had all these fatalities? And he said, stop right there. Those are all rumors. He goes, we have learned so much as a city by being open-minded, by being creative, by allowing all of this new technology, new modes of service to really come into our community. And he said, because all of a sudden we have all this chaos in town. Everybody goes, he I've never had so many requests for bike lanes in my city. So how good is that? And on top of that, what they had learned was that through this chaos of learning something new and trying to adapt, that he realized that there was a pent-up demand for these short trips. And what they learned is that even just with their scooter systems, not their bike share, not their other programs, they're getting 450,000 shared trips per month in Austin, Texas. Think about that. These are trips that probably you wouldn't make if you were working downtown and you wouldn't go to that restaurant a mile away because it's too far to walk. But now people are doing it. It's helping the economy. They're learning their lessons. And I think my message to all of us as professionals in this day and age, in this business of transportation, is that we have to be flexible. We have to be open-minded. We have to recognize ourselves as professionals. We are here to serve the general public. We are here to connect people, not just to sign streets. Yeah, some of us like to do that, but that's not the point. It's connect people. Let's be flexible. Let's experiment. Let's learn from our experiences. And trust me, we're not the only ones going through this. Communities across the nation, across North America are going through the same thing. So let's learn from others. We're not special. Well, we are, but we can learn from others. We don't have to repeat some of the lessons learned that other communities across the nation has experienced. So let's think about that, but keep an open mind that sometimes there's safety implications, it's not just about the built environment or the services or the multimodal. modes of transportation. It's also about policy. It's about institutionalizing best practices. We heard complete streets. We talk about walkability. We talk about vision zero and safety. We talk about how about safety regulations or legislation related to helmet laws? How about speed enforcement cameras? How about let's put an end to a conversation that we're ever going to take red light cameras down? How about all these other tools that we should be using more aggressively to save people in our communities? Sure.
So I'm a huge advocate for scooters. I love it. Not just because they're fun, but there's obviously a reason behind it. So my first experience was in San Antonio, Texas, just a few months ago, and we didn't even know they were there. Walked out of our hotel room, what are these? Started riding for fun the first day, and then the next 3 days it was our mode of transportation the entire time we were in San Antonio. The entire time. We rode them to the Alamo, which is pretty cool. We rode them to a brewery. I think we went out of the service area, but they still worked, which was good. But we saw people in suits, and I saw construction workers riding scooters in downtown San Antonio, going back and forth to their place of work. And then obviously there was the people that did it for leisure. So it turns it into a destination too, because my wife turned, well, I won't tell you what she turned, but she had a birthday last month. And we spent the night in downtown Tampa with some friends because we wanted to ride the scooters. Sunday, we're sitting over at Sales Pavilion, my wife and I, everybody else left, and we went on Amazon and we bought our own. So, sorry we won't be adding to the economy anymore, but we did buy our own. So we have our own and we're cruising around in our area and they fold up and we'll take them wherever we go. So we actually have our own mode, additional mode of transportation moving forward wherever we go. So I think they're great.
I know I promised you guys that I was going to do your comments first and then questions, but I really want to make sure that we get questions in from the audience. So does anyone out there have a question for our panelists? Anything that you'd like to ask our experts up here? I believe we have a microphone floating around. I was told, if not, I will hand this one from the stage. Hi.
Thank you. My name is Jim Shirk. I'm the president of Hillsborough County. And I heard earlier today people talking about political will. I'd like to address the problem of political want.
And I would like to preface this by we are looking for questions.
Okay. How are you going to deal with organized resistance by the Koch brothers and people like them?
Who wants that question?
I might regret this, but I spent 10 years in Phoenix. And on August 29th, next week, there's a vote to end light rail, funding light rail, both the operations of the light rail as well as construction of any new light rail throughout metropolitan Phoenix. And this came 3 years after the voters approved a $17 billion transit program. So I'm very anxiously awaiting the result of that vote. The resistance to all of this was funded via the Koch brothers. They've been very active in organized opposition for other transit programs. Prior to Phoenix, it was most notably in Nashville. The key is to ensure that there's a true grassroots citizen support for how they want to spend their tax monies, whether it's in transportation in general or public transit.
You're going to keep coming to me.
Jim Davis from Hillsborough County, and staying positive and mitigating transit. The state allows the Tampa Hillsborough County Expressway Authority to now go out to the counties that attach to Hillsborough County to assist in spending money. I think their 6-year CIP is $770 million figure that every county would love to have. Is it time for the Tampa Hillsborough Expressway Authority to now start to incorporate members from Pinellas, St. Pete, Pasco County?
Just to improving as a reminder. I mean, I think that's an interesting idea. I know that Pinellas County has looked at a number of different options and seen presentations by the Tampa Bay Expressway Authority about that exact opportunity that adjoining counties can join in. And there's been a lot of proposals to use the toll lanes, like the I-275 project, use the managed lanes, maybe even the Selma Expressway for express bus services that can be even partially funded by the toll revenues that are collected. So I think that is a really interesting alternative that we need to be open to.
Any other questions?
I'll like to talk.
It's a little easier.
Taylor Ralph, I'm a board member of Tampa Bay Mobility Alliance, but related to that last question and a couple of the other ones, I'm a Hillsborough County resident. Hillsborough County is kind of the center of Pinellas and Pasco's transportation needs. So to what extent do you all have a responsibility to ensure that all of your needs are not just delivered on the back of Hillsborough County residents in terms of widening roads, adding lanes? A lot of things that you all are talking about require more interstate lane miles potentially. What can we do to use other modes of transit to move people to and fro? And the second follow-up to that is, what's the difference between BRT and express bus service exactly in terms of Pasco County's needs to get to Hillsborough County or to Pinellas?
You asked a question about other modes of transportation, so I'm going to talk a little bit about Connected City, which is in Pasco County. I don't know who's familiar with Connected City. It's hard to Connected City. You heard of the Crystal Lagoon, right? That's all it is. So Connected City, which was Epperson Ranch Facility Metro Development, is the first gig light community in the nation. In addition to that, it's not being built 20 years from now. Right now, they're building autonomous lanes in that community. So this is the type of community that you're kind of, my thought, you're thinking of where we don't have to get on the interstate to work. We don't have to get on the interstate to go to the grocery store. We don't have to get on the interstate to take a kid to the doctor. There will be medical facilities there too. So in that community, there'll be medical facilities, high-tech businesses, again, autonomous vehicles, golf cart lanes. They have all of that there now. So, and I think they've won probably 20 awards for this project already, nationally from multiple different organizations. That's how forward thinking they are. And again, it's not happening 20 years from now, it's happening now. So I think they're a perfect example of what other communities, what other developments can do across the entire Tampa Bay region. Now when it comes to lane miles for BRT and stuff, yeah, you'll have to have it. We all need to be able to transport the people back and forth quicker between Pinellas, Hillsborough, and Pasco County. And we will need a dedicated lane. There will be more lane miles needed. It's a fact. It has to happen. It needs to happen.
Now, I do want to make sure we get everyone out of here on time, but I would like perhaps one of our transit agency directors to tackle the second question of really getting at what is the difference between an express bus route and true dedicated BRT.
The express bus service and BRT are completely different modes of transportation. Express bus service is more like local service with limited stops. BRT is designed like light rail. Everything about BRT involves features that are not part of local bus service. It includes level boarding. It involves off-board fare collection. It involves traffic signal prioritization. Level boarding is important because you don't have to deploy wheelchair lifts for people with mobility issues that need to board vehicles. The stations are comfortable. They have closed circuit TV for security purposes, 911 call buttons. Just everything about it is designed to operate more frequently than express service or fixed route service.
And then maybe we can start with Ben and make our way down the line. But if you guys want to give your elevator closing pitch, you can either touch on maybe one thing that people should be focused on when they leave here today, or one thing that you're excited about your agency working on.
I love both. Quickly, 57% of the county voters checked yes for the transit tax. That tells me two things. Really that people want more HART service as well as transit in general, and two, they have tremendous confidence in HART. And so we look forward to meeting that challenge in 2020 and beyond. But it's going to be a community effort. So HART's going to be really engaging with the community to find out how they want these tax dollars spent. I look forward to working with each and every person in this room.
I'm just excited to be here in Tampa Bay, working on all these fascinating challenges that are in front of us. Where I come from, if you were to ask people in the community what the greatest challenges were, they would mention things like education, affordable housing, workforce development, poverty, transportation was on the list, but it was typically much lower on the list. Since I've been in Tampa Bay, every time I ask that question to folks around here, number one thing that people mention is transportation and traffic congestion. My favorite traffic reporter is here this morning. She tells me every day about all the crashes that I need to avoid on the way to work. So I'm just excited to be here, working with all the talented people in this room.
I'll just give a big thank you to the folks, the board members, I guess, who created TBMO and this whole effort to try to bring our three counties together. There's been a lot of talk, but not a lot of action over the 8 years that I've been in the Tampa Bay area about the three counties working closer together. I think what the great citizens who put together All for Transportation and let that effort show the power of citizens who are just interested in improving their community. And I view the fact that all of you came here this morning to this, that we do have lots of folks in the whole region that want us to work better together and want to see solutions in all three counties. So thank you very much for your interest, and keep going.
TBMO's purpose is to engage, educate, and advocate for multimodal transportation systems and options. So we hope that this platform that has been created for our region will allow our partners that are here on stage and others that are in the audience to really use us as that platform for discussions, for active conversations about some of these issues that we're all struggling with or trying to address as one voice. Hopefully, this will be the opportunity for you to share your stories, share your messages, share your programs and initiatives, and even the tough projects that you need help with. We can be here for you. And speaking of the Human-Centered Mobility Bill of Rights, you got it. Please give us feedback on it. We're going on the road. We've already been invited to have a similar panel discussion on this issue along with the Gulf Coast Safety Summit that is going to be co-hosted with the National Safe Routes to School Conference right here in Tampa in November. So please come on out for a second round. Let's talk. Let's dig deeper into this issue. And I hope, we're here, I'm here to be part of the solution going forward for transportation. So thank you all for attending, and I can't wait to be a partner in really taking our region to that next step higher.
Again, thank you so much for inviting myself and Pasco County here, get some of our team members you can wave. Good to see everybody. We do not have a transit authority here in Pasco County, but we do have Pasco County Public Transportation. They do so much, and I knew they work with the transit authorities on a regular basis. One of the most recent things that we did was a connection that actually brings you from Pasco County up on a HART and you get to the airport. So, pretty cool stuff. But Pasco County is growing. It's growing by leaps and bounds. Again, we're not the bedroom community we once were. So I appreciate our involvement. We would like to have continued involvement in these conversations moving forward. And I know one of the things we want to do is share ideas and things that have worked. So I'm going to leave you with one, because I know we have multiple elected officials here and multiple people, obviously, from counties and cities. You're probably aware of the State Road 56 extension that just was finished in Pasco County. And one of the questions we always have, and the challenges always have, how do you fund things? How do you fund new roads in your counties? And once you fund new roads, how are you going to pay for the other things like bike lanes and trails? And we're big on trails. If you haven't noticed in Pasco County, every new road we're building, we're making sure there's trails, obviously. But in this instance, it wasn't a normal, hey, FDOT, we need the money, or Pasco County is going to pay for it. We actually got involvement from the landowners. The landowners actually paid for 2 of the 4 lanes on State Road 56. Something very unique, something that hadn't been done before. So if you want to learn more about how you can actually work with the community, the developers and the builders in the area that would like to and are willing to give back, reach out to us, because we're happy to share our thoughts and ideas and things that have been successful. So thank you again for letting us be here.
Well, thank you. That does conclude the panel. Thank you all for joining us today. We do have just closing statements from Ron Weaver. And again, thank you all for being here today and for being part of this conversation.
I'm Ron Weaver. I'm honored to be your policy committee chair for TBMO. Thank you, Janet Trevor, for hosting us. I think you should remind everyone, please use the event lane as you leave, and you'll have free parking. I always was told that if it's not dangerous, it's not an idea. I believe today we have a lot of ideas that create additional dangers. I learned about dangers in high school when I was on the javelin team in my high school for one day until I elected to receive. Dangers, there were 5 dangers from this fantastic panel, and Rick, thank you for starting it so well. Jim, for your questions, because there's a danger today to somebody else is going to do it, because that somebody is going to be us in TBMO as mobility warriors. There's a danger today to conservative thinking that somehow or the other there's a lot of money somewhere that doesn't have to be diverted to transportation. Thank you, Jim, and others. There's a danger today to silos. There's a danger to thinking that somehow or the other parts of the region are not crucial, and really us. And that we not restart water wars and we not restart any kind of not cooperating in transportation. There's a danger to fractionalism. There's a danger to fracturing our region. And thank you for that idea of the danger of fracturing our region. It be not fractured anymore. That it not be fractured anymore. Thank you for the reminder in Arizona next week that the voters have to be redeemed, and the 281,000 voters who were courageous on November the 6th, we're going to also have to win now in the courts. We're going to have to help the 281,000 voters in Hillsborough County to prevail in the Supreme Court against an argument that the whole $9 billion over the next 30 years be thrown out because of one word in the law of Florida called severability, meaning that the arguments are now going to the Supreme Court, that somehow the other, the $9 billion over 30 years have to be thrown out because Judge Barbas may have thrown out parts of the Oversight Committee as to who decides the percentages of the destination of traffic. But we also are going to have to redeem that $9 billion in the Supreme Court of Florida in order to protect that $9 billion from that threat in the courts on the severability of what was voted on by those voters. And then one final danger, then we'll close. The final danger is that somehow or the other, each of us would have figured out that there was some time that we didn't need to give to transportation because we were brave at the polls in November 6th in Hillsborough County. I think the time is now for us to recommit, not just to the other agendas like affordable housing, but to the fact that the greatest danger of these ideas today was the danger to the idea that we can't do it. The idea of we can't do it is not Tampa Bay anymore. It certainly was not Hillsborough County in the November 6th bravery of 281,000 folks packing themselves. If we can do it with transportation in Hillsborough County, we can do it again in Pinellas and Pasco as you have done it bravely over the last few decades, and we're about to do it again with respect to the courage of Pinellas County and Pasco County and further funding. We can do it together, and when we learn how to do it together, we can then go on to tackle the other issues like affordable housing and environmental protection. Thank you for being here. We're adjourned.